Hello, beautiful souls. I am Valeria Maritza at Healing Through You. I am an infinite being of light, and so are you. Once in a while, you meet someone out there that is just so connected. This is my next guest. She has had several NEDs. She's a walking. If you don't know what that is, we can go right into that in this episode. And you can find out so much about what it's like to walk the earth with this knowing, with this little bit of light that has been shown to us because of the experiences that we have gone through. So this is my pleasure to bring to you my guest, Esther Alley. She is amazing, and we connected like right away. We were like speaking the same language, vibing at the same frequency, and so I'm so excited to bring her here to you. Welcome, Esther. I am so excited to have you here. How are you?
I am fabulous and I am so excited to be here. It is so good to be amongst my people.
Oh, yes, I feel you. I completely feel you.
Yes, yes.
Let's get started. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how your life was before your first NED? For those of you who don't know, Esther has had several of them.
I grew up in a family of 10 people. I'm seven of 10. And my mother raised us as a very close-knit family because my father wasn't no longer in the home. And I grew up in a Pentecostal holiness background, and I always felt out of place. I didn't understand what they were doing. I asked a lot of questions, and I think that was just my nature. I asked a lot of questions that couldn't be answered. I was always in trouble because I was asking questions that a child of my age shouldn't have been asking. And I just always felt out of place. And so when I was old enough, I think I left home when I was 17 because I said there has to be something more in this world than what they're teaching me. It was so restrictive and um so uneasy for me to be. And even though I saw some amazing things happen there, it still did not gel with me. So I left and I went out into the world. And I started working. I didn't even bother to go to college. I graduated. In fact, I graduated the last year in high school. I only had to take 4 classes because I had so many credits.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't even realize that I should have went to it wasn't on my radar. I was just interested in life. I wanted to find out what else was out there outside of what I had been raised in. And so I went out there and eventually my sister that was older than me, we ended up getting apartments together, and we're just partying and living for the weekend and enjoying life and working and meeting people and stuff. I had my first child when I was 20, and her father and I were going to get married, and I decided, no, why should I marry him just because I have this child? It didn't
Very
make sense.
progressive.
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
progressive thought.
yeah.
Good.
It didn't make sense to me because there were so many things about him that didn't match with me, and so I didn't want to intermingle my life with his and have the child um, pick up some of his habits. They weren't, yeah. At any
Quite
rate,
aware. You were quite aware.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was quite aware of a lot of things that I didn't understand at that time, but I'm partying and just having a good time. Um, and I got sick. I didn't know what was wrong with me. Every weekend, I'm at the emergency trying to figure out what's wrong. I was losing weight. Um, I didn't have a regular MD, but every woman at that time had to have a gynecologist, right? So I had a gynecologist, but I didn't have a regular MD. But I kept getting sick, and so I kept going to emergency. and they couldn't figure out what it was. And this went on for almost 6 months.
Oh,
And I remember I was so sick. I I I hadn't had a bowel movement in like 2 weeks. And when I did, my bowels were pure white. And I was like, okay, something's really wrong now, right?
yeah.
And so I go back and I tell them this. It's like it's almost like otherworldly. They should have known what this was. And then one day I got up and I just felt better. I said, I'm gonna go to work, right? But I'm still looking like a skeleton. And I noticed, okay, I'm changing colors because all the insides of my hands were yellow, my eyes were yellow, my mouth, all this was, I'm like, something, but I didn't know what it was. So I go into work. My supervisor sees me. She says, oh no, you got to go home. Go back to your doctor, tell them to give you a test for yellow jaundice or hepatitis because something's wrong. And that's what I did. I went right to my gynecologist and said, could you give me a test for hepatitis or yellow jaundice? They did. He said, you have hepatitis. He gave me the name of a doctor. He said, go see this doctor. So I go see the doctor. He says, okay, just go home, rest, eat a bland diet, no seasoning. The liver is ill and it has to heal itself. What he didn't realize was that I was in the third stages of that disease.
Other than that, check.
It's the weirdest thing. I'm laying there dying. And slowly, I remember I was in my bedroom and I used to sleep in the dark, right? And I heard this voice call my name, Esther. And I sat up. It scared me so bad. I was like, uh-uh, I won't be sleeping in this room again in the dark. And I got up and I started sleeping on the couch. And my other sister was living with me, but she's still partying. She's like, yeah, the party has to go on, you know.
Yeah,
So
you're sick in the couch.
right. But I had this feeling that I was at the end. I knew that that voice was death. I knew that was from another place. And I had this feeling, so I began to prepare my life. Like, I made sure all my insurances were up to date. My car insurance would be paid. My car would be paid off if once I left. There would be money left for my little girl. I made sure I went and did her. I think this was in the winter. I had put her, I used to put her summer clothes on layaway. So when summer comes, she'd have summer clothes. I had this system that I had in my mind. So all of that was taken care of. And then I told my sister when I got this feeling, I said, I want to go home. I want to go back to the church and see everybody. And she said, oh, don't worry, this was Saturday. And she's partying, she's high and everything. She said, we'll go, we'll go. And so that Sunday I got up and we went to the church. And everybody's looking at me because I look like death warmed over, okay? And so we get there, and the bishop tells us to stand up, me and my sister. And he starts telling this story about a journey he had been on praying for another woman. He said, and on my way back from this journey of praying for this person, he said, I encountered you, talking about me. And he said, a lamb got in between us, and I knew I couldn't reach you. He said, I've seen your death certificate. I mean, this man prophesied to me. He said, I've seen your death certificate. He said, and when you leave, your sister's going to lose her mind. And of course, the whole church is screaming and hollering. And I'm like, and I'm sitting there like, you telling me something I don't know? That was my attitude. I remember because I knew I was out of here. And then at the end of the service, as everybody was passing and shaking and all, and he checked, he shook my hand. He said, little girl, he said, I have been praying for you. He said, I have sent to the kahunas, because he's a member of the Hawaiian kahuna or something, and the Masanis, he said, and they all sent red flags. He said, but if you want to live, you have to go to God for yourself. And I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? I'm out of here. I'm dead because I don't know nothing about no God, right? And um, and so my mother immediately sent all my brothers, moved me out to her house, just took over my life, right? Which it was gone anyway. But the one thing I remembered, I was laying on her couch and she had a white sheet on the couch. And when I would close my eyes, I would see just pure white. It was just so bright. And I never felt what I was feeling at that moment. Just peace. There was no pain. There was no worry. I mean, I've never had that feeling since. And so I'm laying on the couch. And then one day my brother's bamming on the door. We used to call my mother my dear. My dear, my dear, get up, get up. She comes to her, what's wrong? She said, Bishop said, take her to the hospital. She's laying there dying. She's dying. And I was. I was just going, sleeping away. And my mother just thought I was just sleeping, but I was leaving. And I knew it. I mean, I didn't feel attached anymore here. So of course, they all get me in the car and the whole family got to go. Everybody's rushing me over to the hospital. And I remember I'm in the examining room and the doctor comes in and examines me. And then he goes out and he says, he calls for my family who's here with her. And I remember hearing him say to my mom, if you know how to pray, you better pray. He said, because there's nothing we can do for her. Okay. And I'm laying there and I still didn't feel fear. I wasn't afraid. I was like, I already know everybody's telling me what I know, and I'm okay with this. There was a peace about this. But the one thing I think that held me to this side, nothing changed. They put me in the hospital. I was in the hospital about 8 days. Nothing changed in what I felt, nor in my condition. But my mother came every day from the beginning of visiting hours. She got on the bus and rode a bus for 30 miles to be there when visiting hours started. She'd wake me, she'd bathe me, she'd feed me, and she'd sit there all day with me. The other thing that was happening to me was I was dreaming very vividly. It was like my life was being played out. There was a review. Everything that had happened, I saw it through the dreams. And I remember asking my mom about certain things, and she would look at me and she'd say, how could you remember that? You were 5 months old. You were 8 months old. How do you remember these? And I kept telling her, I saw it in a dream. She said, yeah, that happened. And then one night, well, they had scheduled me for a liver biopsy because nothing was changing. Everything was the same. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I don't want that to happen. I don't want them to do this invasive stuff. I don't want them to just leave me alone, right? And I remember that night, I went to bed, I was humming this hymn, this spiritual song. I can't remember to this day. I cannot remember the song, okay? To this day, I can't remember. But it was so peaceful. It just lulled me into sleep, right? The next day, when I awakened, I don't remember anything from the night before. No dream, no nothing. The sun woke me up because it was shining through the windows of my room. And I remember I jumped out of bed and ran to the window. And I looked up, I said, that's what the sun is. It was like I had never seen the sun. I'm looking around the grass. Oh my God, that's what a tree is? That's grass? Oh, wow, I was so excited to see these things. I'd never seen them before. At least that's was my feeling. That's what I felt.
Okay.
I knew intellectually what they were, but I had never seen it before. And then as I began to think, I could remember things, but I didn't even know why I was there. It was like I'm looking in someone else's mind as the memories begin to flow in. They weren't, I didn't have any connection to them. I hadn't experienced it, but I knew it belonged to this body, to me. I knew that it had, you understand? Because I could see myself in it, but this was not, it's like I was reconnecting to this, to the physical, and to what had happened in this physical. But I didn't know why, but I knew I shouldn't be in that hospital. And so I go out and I tell them, look, I need to go. I need to go. I shouldn't be here. And they're like, no, no, Esther, get back in your bed. You're not, what do you mean I'm not, well, I'm not sick. Okay, whatever, I'm healed. I'm not sick. So I'm all excited and making all this noise. And they're like, just calm down, calm down. And so they sent the phlebotomist in to take blood, and he's trying to take blood. And I'm like, look, I'm not, he said, just calm down, calm down. Let me get your blood. We're going to do some tests. I said, whatever you got to do. I am not sick anymore. I want to go home. And all these memories were flooding in my mind. So I knew I was a part of a family. I knew I could see my mom. I could see all of these pieces. And so I asked him, I said, I want to call my mom. And the lady said, okay, you can call her. Here's the payphone, the number, blah, blah, blah. So I called, I said, could you come get me? I'm ready to go. She said, no, you can't come home. I'm on my way. I'm coming, but you can't come home. This is early in the morning, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I was so agitated, they called for the doctor. Okay, it was like this woman had lost her mind. Because I knew I didn't belong there. I was like, why am I
You
here,
had
right?
energy. I mean, from being laying on the bed doing nothing,
Yeah.
like
Boom, I'm up. And the doctor comes in and he says, what is going on? You can't go home. You're sick. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Please don't make me stay here. I'm just fussing when he said, listen, listen, just calm down. Calm down. I'm going to make a deal with you. This is what we're going to do. If you can gain 5 pounds, when you gain 5 more pounds and some of the poison, they call it bowel, is backed out of your system, I'm going to let you go home. He came the next day. I had gained the 5 pounds and there was no poison in my system. And the doctor was like, I don't know what the hell is going on here. I don't know what happened. I've never seen this before. I said, I tried to tell you, I want to go home. Let me go home. My mom came and got me that day. I went home. Okay? I went home. But something was different. And not something, everything was different. It was almost a seamless process, but there was just this little something that I knew something was different. I didn't know what it was, you know? And my whole world changed, my whole world. I mean, I knew my child, I knew all of the people, but I remember I could think of something that I desired and it would show up. Okay? It was like manifestation on steroids. Okay? But I began to understand that process because I was led to read certain things. I began to study every religion because something had happened that I didn't understand. So I'm in search of what the hell happened to me.
did you talk to
Why?
anyone? Did you try to explain it to anyone?
There was no one around me at that time, and I knew instinctively, I knew they would not understand what was happening. My sister that I lived with, I talked to her, and she just kind of looked, yeah, but you've been really sick and blah blah blah, and she's kind of bringing herself back in because I come from a line of wisdom women. I call them wisdom women. They all had the sight. They all had this sixth sense, like my great great grandmother was full-blooded Cherokee. And then her daughter, she was a voodoo priestess. She used to do they all were from New Orleans, right? And she used to, do potions and stuff like that for people. But then her daughter and my mother and my aunt, they all kind of did it on the down low because they were in this church, right? So that didn't match. So they knew, but they call it prophecy and stuff like that. So they played it down. They didn't play into it like my great grandmother did. So
Because
I
it wasn't
always had
safe
that.
back then. I mean, you could just get burnt or killed or
Right.
thrown
It
in
wasn't
jail
really safe.
somewhere back then. Yeah.
But my sister, the one that I live with, she had that gift too. And it was very prominent in her. And I think that's why she was um, living the life with me that she was living, because she was running away from it. Right. So I didn't really have anybody to talk to, but I had books. I would walk in bookstores and books would fall off the shelf in front of me, which would tell me I needed to read this. When I finally went back to work, I remember I went back to work in Los Angeles assessor's office. And I will never forget this woman. Her name was Lee. And she had a friend that worked in that whole section. And one day, this woman, she walks up to me with a paper bag. She said, "I was told to give you this book." And it was in a paper bag. It didn't have a cover. She said, "You'll understand." And so I took the book and I went and read it. And the name of the book is called Three Magic Words by U.S. Anderson. An amazing book. An amazing book. The three magic words, you don't get to the three magic words till the end of the book,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm going to tell you what the three magic word was, but you'll understand it anyway. The three magic words are, you are God.
I knew it. I knew you're gonna say that.
Okay? And I was like, oh my God, oh my God. I trying to absorb that. And I was like, because I'm still living in this crazy world.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm reading these words and I'm like, okay, okay, let me breathe, let me breathe. But my life after that changed so dramatically, right?
Wait. Let me just
And
stop you for a second. Because you read that and you know it's true. This
I
is
knew
why,
it. I
right?
knew it.
Right?
But how do you explain that to the rest of the world and the people that you're around? And everything that my memory told me was saying that's blasphemy. Everything in my environment is saying that's blasphemy. But yet in my heart, in my spirit, I knew this is real.
Because if you're not there, uh, in your mind, in your soul's, advancement, whatever you want to call it, enlightenment, then you read it and you say, that's not true. That's BS. What is this thing,
But I
right?
knew,
But you know, and this is why it
I knew,
changes you.
I knew.
That confirmation.
I didn't have all the pieces that got me there, but I
Uh-huh.
knew because I had begun to study all the religions, Buddhism, Islam, all of them. I began to study them to try to understand what had happened. And I knew I don't belong in any of that. This is a man-made thing for control. And I saw that. I'm 23, 24 years old. I saw this is bullshit. Excuse my expression. But this is how they have controlled us. It sounds good. Some of it is beautiful. Some of it is pretty. And I hadn't found Sufism or Sikhism. I hadn't got to that yet, because those are higher levels of Islam and of Hindu. Yeah, it's a different sect off of Hindu. But I studied all of that stuff, and none of it gave me answers. And life goes on, so I'm going through. I got married, had another kid, and I'm going through life, and
So wait a second. Back up just a little bit. So when you leave the hospital and there's nothing, there's no poison within you, that was it. Now you're good. There's no explanation, and everybody just
Nothing.
accepts
I
it.
don't have nothing. This is what I'm telling you. I have nothing.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, there were a lot of memory. Let me tell you, memories came up from when I was a child. I had been sexually abused and I didn't remember. But let me tell you, it's like when I realized it, I was like, oh my God, this happened. This is why I have a relationship with men the way I have. It began to all make sense. And I knew who the people were that did it, but I wasn't angry. I forgave them. And I'm like, what? I didn't understand. I don't, I can't even explain the way it was happening because all this stuff was happening and my reactions were totally opposites from what they should have been based on our society. I should have been pissed, right? But I wasn't. And I didn't know why I wasn't. Do you understand?
Yeah.
It was like I'm looking at this, oh, wow, this happened to me? Whoa, what? Whoa, okay.
I'm getting chills because I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes.
It's, yeah.
I know people that have experienced that as a child and they're messed up for life.
Yep.
They can't get past it.
Mm-mm.
I have clients that I have to work through this with. I didn't have that experience. And it was three different people that did this to me. And I could look at them and feel compassion. I'm like, okay, this isn't normal, right? But I kept searching. Even though life was happening, I got married, I'm back at work, I have another kid. I moved from LA to Seattle, and I'm still searching and I'm still reading. I'm still in that vein of searching. I run into this author named Ruth Montgomery. She had written a series of books. And I start reading. And it wasn't the first one that I read. And I can't even remember the name of the book, but it was one of her books where she started to talk about walk-ins. And when I read it, I knew. Oh my, but I'm getting chills right now because I started to cry. I was crying and it made sense. I knew that's what had happened. I was like, nobody could tell me that. But when I saw it, when I read it, I understood it, and I knew there was an exchange. The night that I didn't remember anything, there was an exchange. And I was like, oh my God.
So for the audience and those people who don't know what a walking is, even though you just painted the beautiful story to get there, can
Yes.
you tell us what is a walking?
A walk-in is a highly evolved spirit that will step in when the soul decides that it no longer wants to be on this level. So another soul will say, I will walk in and complete the mission. It may sound strange, but when you really understand how we as gods work, it'll make sense to you. It made so much sense to me. And some of them will play out what we call the karma, but it's not karma. It's things that that first soul had committed to. It will play it out and then it will take on its mission. And that's what was happening to me. So I was living out the commitments of the first soul, but through the higher soul that has stepped in, the
The
more
one that's
developed
all
soul.
loving,
Yeah.
accepting, can
Yes.
forgive.
Yes. 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 And there were still some rough edges, that I think I had to learn and look at and understand because I was still in this world. and I hadn't stepped into what my commitment was. I didn't even know until I went through two more of these experiences. I didn't even know what I was truly committed to, but I got the call. I think I was in my 50s. I met a man. I met a man, he owned a gym. And this was right after the third near-death experience when they told me.
So wait, you're skipping over two near-death experiences.
Right, skipping over one. I'm
Okay.
skipping over one. One was at 30, right?
Uh-huh.
And that one was so weird. I knew, and this is what's interesting, there was always, it always was a choice. I had to choose. Every time I went to death's door, I always had to choose. And I don't believe in death, but I want to say that exchange place. It was always a choice. At 30, when I had that experience, I hemorrhaged to death from a miscarriage. My placenta had broken apart and covered the opening so the fetus couldn't pass.
Mm.
And by the time they got me into the examining room, I mean, just blood went everywhere. I had been hemorrhaging for a while. And when they got me in the operating room, and that was where I know that whomever that was, it wasn't from this dimension. That person that came in and said, you have to choose. It
Mm.
was I thought it was a doctor, but then I realized that I wasn't even on this plane anymore.
Huh?
Um, because the being stood, only his head was above her head. It was a female. Her head was above the gurney.
Mm.
And she walks up to me and in my ear, she didn't even say it out loud. And I didn't see anyone else in this scenario. She walks up and she says, you have to choose. I can't save you both. And I said to her, I have two other children and I can have more. So I have to stay. She went, her arm up to here, went inside of me and removed that fetus. When I came back to consciousness, I was in the upper room and everything was normal again.
Mhm.
Okay. And they had me hooked up. They was giving me 2 or 3 pints of blood. They were like, we got to replenish the blood. You lost so much blood. I knew then when I came out of that, I was like, okay. And let me just back up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because before I got there, I'm coming from Seattle to Los Angeles because my grandmother had transitioned. And I'm hemorrhaging on the plane. And I'm telling you, I have a bath towel that I have folded small enough to fit between my legs. And I had hemorrhaged so bad, it came all the way through all of that. And I remember getting up, changing, because one of the conductors had came and said, you don't look well. Let me take the children to the game room so you could rest. So I got up and changed and put another one. And I said a prayer. I said, hold my sun and stay my moon and allow me to make that journey. And the bleeding stopped. I didn't drop another drop of blood until I got into LA Union Station. How I knew to pray that prayer and the intensity of that prayer to stop time, that I could make that journey. Who am I? Okay. That's what I'm thinking. Who are you? But I knew there were things happening along that journey that weren't what we would call normal. I shouldn't have made it through that the way I was bleeding, but there was not another drop for 20 something hours. Okay. Okay. So I
So
want,
let me just ask you one other little question. Did you have like a life review?
No, not then. No, I did not have a life review. I didn't lose. The only time in that process that I knew I was not here was when that being showed up. And I'm going to tell you, I knew I was somewhere else because there was no one else in that operating room but her. There was no lights, there was no noise, there was nothing but me and her. Okay?
Do you know
So
who
I
that
knew.
being was or where it came from?
See, you're making me come out. You're outing me. You're outing me. I
You don't
love
need
it.
to say.
I love it. I believe it was a higher being. At first, I thought. Let me tell you this. At first, I thought it was a higher being, maybe from the Palladian system,
Mhm.
but I didn't settle on that, and the Arcturian was the other. I didn't settle on that because I wasn't sure. And I'll tell you in a minute why I knew it wasn't a Palladian. I'll tell you about that in a minute. So I know it was an Arcturian. And you knew it too when I told you earlier. You was
Uh-huh.
like, that's who it was, right? So, but I'll tell you why it wasn't a Palladian later on. So anyway, got to that again, going back through life, I I could and what was really crazy, the way I saw life, the way I moved through the world, I'm thinking everybody could do this. I'm thinking everybody was, and I remember just before I had the last one, I remember thinking, everybody don't see the world the way I'm seeing it. Everybody can't do what I'm doing. I mean, if I wanted to create something, I did it. You know what I'm saying? They used to call me the kingmaker in Seattle because I was working in the political system, I was working corporate and stuff and nonprofits. And whatever I put my hand to, it just happened. I took on this nonprofit. It was called Girls Inc. They were $22,000 in the hole. The IRS was coming to put locks on it. I said, not so. And don't ask me how I did it. I
Uh-huh.
just did it. I knew it wasn't going to be, right? Somehow, somebody sent a lawyer to me. She was a tax lawyer. She somehow wiped out that tax deck. I put together a whole board, the whole thing. And once I got it back stable, then I put it under the YWCA as one of their programs, saved the whole thing. I don't even know how I did it. First Black mayor of Seattle. His wife comes to me. We're friends, right? Good friends. My husband wants to run for mayor. I said, oh, that's great. He wants me to run a campaign. Wonderful. But I'm not going to do it if you don't do it with me. And I'm like, why is this woman staking her husband's future on me? I said, okay, I'll work with you. Of course, we made it happen. And then um, it was really funny because people, I knew they saw me in a certain way, but they didn't understand who and how I did things. So then they came to me and said, okay, we want to do the inauguration, and we want you to chair the inauguration committee. I said, okay, here's my idea. And I told us we're going to do a party for all the people. So we'll have a party for free, where anybody that want to come, they can come for free. Then we'll have one for the working class, $25. And then we'll have one for the upper class, $250 a ticket. So I threw all these parties. They just said, here, if you need anything, ask this person, ask it. All this happened, right? I worked on so many different campaigns, and people say, if you want to win, get Esther. She's going to do it. And I'm thinking, why am I and they can't see
Uh-huh.
the way I see things, right? And that's when I realized that they couldn't see the world the way I saw it. And I didn't fully understand because it was so natural to me.
Yes, and that's the point. And I'm so glad you're bringing this up, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but like anyone who's awakening or who's, you know, thinks or feels that there's something different about them, that's it. We're like, it's so natural to us that we think it's nothing. We think it's normal and we think that it's not
Yeah.
special,
No.
right?
Yeah. I mean, and there are those that will look at you and want to condemn you. And I had that. I had both sides, you know, or they try to set traps for you, you know, just different things, right? It's just it was a very, but what it made me realize is that everybody don't see what you see, and they don't do it the way you do it because they don't understand that. And the last one I had, I was working on a project that there was a lot of resistance in the company I was working with. And I remember the director, he said to me, I there's only one color I care about, and that's green. He said, and the idea you have, I like. Go do it, right? Well, I had to fight every other department because they didn't understand where did she come from? She ain't nobody. Where she came from, and she gonna do this, right? But I did it. I made it happen. But it cost me physically because I was not only putting energy to the project I was doing, but energy was going out to fight off all of the opposition.
Mm.
And my body broke down. My gallbladder went out. So they take my gallbladder out, right? Send me home, and they took it out. Um, um, this was a new procedure that they were using. They call it laparoscopic, where they didn't cut you open. They used little holes, and they, you know.
Mhm.
So I'm on the cutting edge of that. They send me home. You should be back up and at work in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, I go in for my checkup. I tell the doctor, I am so tired. I don't have any energy. You know, he said, oh, don't worry, it'll be better. 2 weeks later, I wake up one morning, I can't breathe. I can't stand to be touched. I'm just like, this is the way I'm breathing. I called the surgeon. You know what he told me? Call your regular doctor. See, he didn't got his money. He done. Call your regular doctor. I called my regular doctor and I explained to him what's happening. He said, get to the hospital. I'll meet you there. I get to the hospital and they're trying to examine me, and just this touch was just, you know, we have to touch. I said, no, but it hurts so bad. It hurts so bad. So they took x-rays and all that stuff, and they still, again, I don't know why I have these things that people can't figure out. They can't figure out what's wrong with me. Okay. So it's the strangest thing.
Like, why can't they
So
figure it out? I know what's wrong with me
wait,
or not.
so I tell them, you know, I had the surgery, blah, 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 blah. They take x-ray, they said, oh, the whole the bottom half of your right lung, we don't see it, it's gone. I'm like, what the hell you mean it's gone? Well, either you have a bad case of pneumonia or something, right? We're gonna send you up to nuclear medicine. So they send me up to nuclear medicine, and they still ain't figured it out. So they got me on antibiotics. They put me on blood thinners. Every hole in my body has something. They had me on oxygen. I couldn't lay down. I could only sit up. You know, they have pillows behind me. So the doctor comes in, and I'm laying up here again for days. For days. I'm out of the body now. I'm like, screw this. There's too much pain. Because they put me on morphine, and the morphine did nothing for the pain. They had to change me to this other drug, Demerol or something else. I remember these drugs because they were switching these drugs trying to get the pain, but I couldn't stand it by. And I remember looking at myself in the bed. I'm above, looking down at myself. And they had me in this room, the small room. And I mean, all these people from my work came in, and they started praying because they were leaving. And I could see them, but they were white balls of light all around me, right? And I'm like, wow, what is this? So what I was seeing was their souls, right? And I kept saying, I'm not going back. I'm good. I can leave. I can again, I'm out of here, right? Boy said, no, you don't get to leave. You have to go back. I'm like, what do you mean I gotta go back? You're not finished. You haven't finished. Now here's the kicker. I'm still laying up here in this bed, but I'm not in that body. I'm hovering. My sister's there reading and praying, and she's scared to death. My doctors are coming in, they scared to death. Because you know what all it takes is just a little piece of a blood clot to move and go to your heart, and that's it. You're out. So everybody's all every day. And this particular morning, they come in, all the doctors come in and they're doing their rounds. You know how they do their rounds and stuff. There was this doctor, which I thought was a doctor, beautiful man, tall, long blonde hair, keen features, beige suit. He didn't even come in the room. He just stood at the door. He said, take her to ultrasound, have him go in through the back, pull the fluid off her lung. She has a pulmonary embolus infarct. Have him pull that fluid off the lung. They did it. And when the needle itself is that big, and then the syringe was that big, right? When they did it and they pulled that fluid, I dropped back into my body.
So all this time you're like looking down at your body.
I'm not there. I'm not in that body.
Uh-huh.
I'm not. I'm just I'm hovering because there was so much pain. There was so much pain. They changed me to another drug called Dilaudid. They had to do a annulus trying to get up there to see what was happening, and I couldn't lay down, but I had to be flat. So they shot me full of this Dilaudid, which just deadened everything, right? And so yeah, I couldn't stay in this. It was so much pain. It was like my consciousness was like, no, we're not dealing. We're not going to hang out down there. That's a little rough, right? And I'm really thinking that I'm going to get the go ahead to get out of there, right? I'm really
It's like,
thinking
to get out of here.
somebody's going to figure this out and let me out, right? But no. So after a few days, they let me go home. And I told my sister, I want to go back and thank that doctor. I said, that was the worst thing that I've ever experienced. I said, I couldn't even stay in my own body. And she said, I know. She said, I know you weren't there. She said, I was talking to you and you wouldn't even respond. I said, because I wasn't there. She said, I know. And so she and I went back up to the hospital to tell this doctor how amazing he is, right? So we get there and I didn't know his name, so I'm describing him. He was so unique, they had to know who he was, right? And these nurses looked at me and said, we don't know who you're talking about. We don't have no doctor that look like that works here. And then one said, well, maybe she's talking about the doctor that left and went to the East Coast. He kind of looked like that. She said, no, because he wasn't even here when she was here. I said, so you remember me being here? They said, yeah, we remember you. And you telling me there was no doctor like that? She said, yeah, there was no doctor that looked like what you just. I said, this doctor saved my. She said, there is no doctor here that looks like what you're describing. I was like, okay, here we go again. Me and my sister, because my sister saw him too.
Uh-huh.
She saw him.
And obviously the doctors that followed the instructions.
Huh?
The doctors that followed the instructions to take
That's where they, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And we're both leaving there baffled, right? So anyway, life goes on. I met this man afterwards. Oh no, after that, I was very swollen, you know, and I had to go back in for another surgery. because I had this um I had in my womb I had a fibroid the size of a 4-month-old baby, and I couldn't lose the weight that I had gained from all of the I had candidas all through my body. I was a mess, right? So I went in, I had the surgery, they took that out. I still couldn't lose weight. So I said, okay. After I had that surgery, I was so weak and I couldn't hardly breathe. Anyway, so I said, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to start working out, but I couldn't walk but 5 minutes on the treadmill. Well, not even 5 minutes. I would walk a minute, rest, walk a minute, and I kept timing and kept pushing myself until I got to 5 minutes. Kept going and kept going till I could walk steady for 20 minutes. And then a friend said, you know what? I go to the gym. Come go to the gym. There's a guy there. They are so cool, blah, blah, blah. So I went with her. And I'm there stretching, because I'm going to get on the treadmill and do my little thing. And the guy comes out and she introduced me. And he says, come into my office. I want to talk with you. So I go in and he said, I've been waiting for you. They told me you were coming. I'm like, what? Okay, here we go again.
The
He
movie,
starts,
like it's
wait a minute. He starts to talk to me, and the room, it's like we go into this fog. We're no longer there. And he's telling me he was a walk-in too, but he didn't call it that. He told me what happened to him and how they took him in this Merkaba. And when he came back, he knew this is what he was supposed to do. He said, and they told me you were coming, and I was supposed to help you.
whoa.
Okay. So we became like that. He was like my spiritual mentor.
Uh-huh.
And I remember he's the one that taught me about, or that helped me remember Atlantis, Lemuria, all this stuff. We would just have sessions and he was just feeding me all this. And he said, you just don't know who you are yet. I said, well, just tell me. He said, no. He said, if I tell you now, you'll hurt somebody because you haven't mastered the flesh and you get angry and you would beat and hurt somebody. You've been turning them into a rabbit or something. He would make jokes like that, right? And I'm like, what is this dude talking about? But I remember, and we did some great things. We did some great things together. And that's during the time when I found out about it was during that time that, I remember I decided for my 50th birthday, I'm going to do a bodybuilding show. And he said, not a problem. We could do that. Right. So in 9 months, I went from 265 pounds to 176 pure muscle. I was like 7% body fat. And I did a bodybuilding show, right?
Wow.
And we used to do circles on Sundays where people would come and we would just teach. And then New Year's Eve, in my house, I was having uh ceremonies with my sister would come down and he would come. And the funny thing, when we're in these circles, it'd be about 40, 50 people, he would go into this language. And it wasn't like with the churches do tongue, it was this other language. But I understood, I could interpret what he was, and I didn't know how I understood.
Harry
But he was
Potter, here we
speaking,
go.
and I could, right? It was the weirdest thing. And I remember the first time I said, how come I know what you're saying, but you're not speaking? He said, I told you don't know who you are. I said, I understand everything you're saying, but you're not speaking English. And he said, I told you. So, but he also told me, he said, he had a son from his previous life. He said, part of me being able to come back, I am never to marry and I'm never to bring another child. He said, and I know how I'm going to transition out of here. I said, what do you mean? He said, when I leave, I will leave meditating. I will be meditating and I will just leave. There was this girl, she's from India, and she was bent and determined on having him. And what happened, we all dispersed. It was like everybody went in different directions, right? I came to the East Coast. My sister was in California. I had a nephew that was, everybody dispersed. So he ended up getting this girl pregnant and he married her. The baby died. The baby, when she was trying to deliver the baby, I think her water broke, but it ingested its own fecal matter, and it died. So nothing happened. She got pregnant again. 2 days, 3 days before she was supposed to deliver, he transitioned. And he transitioned meditating. He knew if he didn't leave, the baby would leave. They both could not be. And he knew for when she lost that first baby, she carried that dead baby picture around every year he couldn't go through that again. So he transitioned out in order for that child to stay. The baby was born 3 days after his death. Yeah, yeah. This is the kind of stuff I'm okay. But my first, and I told you I do plant medicine, right? My first ayahuasca journey, he said, "Don't worry, I'm here with you." And I knew it was him. I knew he didn't even have to say his name. I knew his energy signal. And he walked me through that because I was like, shit, what am I gotten myself into? He said, "Don't worry." And it showed me, that journey showed me where everything came from. And I was in sacred geometry. He said, "This is what you are. This is where you came from." Right? And I'm seeing this sacred geometry. It's everywhere. My eyes are closed. So my conscious mind is like, open your eyes and then it won't be there. I opened my eyes, it was everywhere. I'm in this. I've become this, right? But he was there with me. It was just amazing. Amazing. So yeah,
So, okay, so your first NED, that's when you switch souls, you become a walking, and then you have two other NEDs, and then at this point, it's just the same soul coming back to finish your mission.
same soul. Again, but it was choice.
But you
Each
said the
time it
last
was
time
each
you were
time
like, you were like, I
each
want to
time it was
stay,
choice. Yeah.
and they're like, you
I
can't.
didn't want to stay. I didn't want to stay the last time.
Uh-huh.
And that's when I got the message, you don't have to come here to get what we have for you.
Yes, I love,
You understand?
yes, I understand. That's
Yeah,
the new energy. Like, that's what we're being told. You no longer have to go through the near-death experience in order to get this awareness and
you
remember
don't
who you
have to.
are.
You don't have to. You don't have to.
Yeah.
And so the last one, really, I still made the choice to stay. It still was a choice. Because I don't think I would have stayed just because he came. Oh, and let me tell you who he was. I got to tell you who he was. So they told me they didn't know who he was. One night I'm at my sister's house visiting late. I'm up late because I'm a late, I don't go to sleep early. And this program come on called Eckankar. And they're talking about this world right. I'm like, I ain't never heard nothing like that. What in the hell is that, right? So I'm going to look it up on the computer. Google knows everything. I call Google God. It knows everything. Okay. So I go to Google and I look it up, go to their website, and I'm looking and reading. And it says living masters, because the way the religion works, there's one living master that is ahead of the religion until he dies, and then another one replaces it. So I go to the page of the living masters. There the doctor is. His name was Gopal Das. He lived 3,000 years ago and he taught in the pyramids. Okay.
Amazing.
Hence my connection to Egypt. Okay. So I'm like, this is not real. I show it to my sister. I said, look who I found. She said, oh my God, that's him. That's not good enough. That's not enough. Because one thing people must understand, when spirit shows you something, it will always witness, it will always qualify it for you. You'll get another, um, you'll get, it'll prove itself. You understand what I'm saying? It always qualifies what it tells you. It doesn't what you see. So we both saw, we know that's it, right? About 10, maybe 15 years later, my brother's dying. I'm in Portland visiting some friends. And this one guy, the girl, this is her new boyfriend. And he says, I met him and everything. He says, oh my God. He said, I want you to meet my mom. You have to meet my mom. You have to meet my mom. You'll understand, right? And I'm like, okay, whatever. So next time I'm in Portland, I meet his mom. And then my brother is dying. He's in the hospital and they're calling me. And I'm trying to, I don't know why they're calling me, like I can save him, whatever. But anyway, I'm telling them, and I'm talking to him because he hasn't went out yet. I'm talking to him. I'm telling him, you know, well, how you feel, what's going on. And he's making promises to me because I had been trying to help him to do better with himself, but he was, anyway, so I meet the guy's mom. Anyway, she calls me. She says, I have a message for you. She said, is your brother in the hospital? I said, yeah, I have a brother that's in the hospital. She said, this entity named Gopal Das gave me a message for you. He will transition, but he's okay. It's time. And I'm like, Gopal Das? How the fuck? I said, do you know who Gopal? She said, yes, he's one of your guides. I'm freaking out. By the time I get to the train station, because I taken the train. By the time I get to the train station in Portland, they're calling me. Oh my God, he's dying. He's dying. I said, calm down, calm down. Every time they bring him back, his heart stopped again. I said, listen, you need to calm down and tell him to stop. Stop doing this to him. He's made a choice. He's transitioning. Stop it. And they let him go. But I had already been told that he was going. So I knew, don't do any heroics. They'll put him on life support. He's not coming back. Don't do that. Let him go. And they were screaming and hollering, said, just calm down, please. Just let him go. And they did. And after that, several more messages. I mean, I kept them all. She would type them out and send them to me. She said, because I want you to have them. Between him and then another another guy showed up, Ramesses. She said his name was Ramesses II, the pharaoh in Egypt. I said, now this is making sense because my first trip to Egypt, I encountered this entity. I encountered him in his fury in the temple of Luxor. We were in there doing ceremony, and I was with a Maori elder. I was the logistic person. The Maori elder put the circle together. He said, once I put the circle together and we start the ceremony, do not break the circle. He starts the ceremony, and there were two young girls that were with us that evidently had wandered off, and they saw we had started the circle. They ran in and they broke the circle. When they broke the circle, this energy came in and they both just fell out. One was foaming at the mouth, and I was like, oh, I told him, I said, get them out, get everybody out of here, get it. And I don't even know how I knew to do this, but I just knew. I just jumped in taxi, said, get everybody out of here, get everybody out of here, get them out of here. So they picked up the girls and they got them out. They went back to the ship. And I said, leave two men here. I need two guys with me. I went back into the temple. I said, show me the prayer room. Show me the highest, the most holiest place in this temple. They took me there. I went there and I spoke. I said, spare their lives. I know that we didn't ask permission. Please forgive us for not asking permission to be in your temple. I'm sorry. Please spare their lives. Because I knew they weren't going to come back. One of them came back immediately. By the time I got back to the boat, she was back. The other one, it took her a whole day before she became normal again. Okay. And I knew it was Ramesses because he had showed himself to me in the pyramid when we were in the Queen's chamber, and I almost slipped and fell down the shaft, and someone grabbed me. And when I stood up, I could see the energy in that room. It was emerald green. When we went to go in that temple to do that ceremony, there's two statues of him that sit at the opening of that temple, and he has a ring, and that ring lit up to let me know he was there. So I knew going in that energy was there, but I didn't expect what happened because I always ask permission when I go in to a temple now, but I don't think the Maori elder knew I can set this circle where you'll be protected, but don't break the protection. And they did. So he shows up and starts sending messages along with Gopal. And so I'm like, ask them, why are they talking to you and not talking directly to me? Because I'm like, I'm right here. Why are you talking to me? She says, because you guys made a pact that they would not interfere or talk directly to you. And that's why they're using me and they use other people to speak them. I was like, wow. And the
When did
stuff they
this
were
happen?
telling me was right on. The stuff they would be telling me, it would be right on. It would
Yes.
be
When did
right
this
on.
happen?
This was happening up until I started doing plant medicine. This was happening up until I started doing plant medicine.
What brought you to
Huh?
try plant? What brought you to want to try the plant medicine?
Well, the first time I did it when Willie showed up, it was I had another reader, that another woman that was reading. She said, "I did ayahuasca, and blah blah blah." I said, "Oh, I think I want to try." The way she described it, I think I want to try that. So I went and did it with an Ecuadorian shaman in the state of Washington. But I had started going to Egypt, right? And I went back. Spirit called me back to Egypt in 2017. I was in this church called Center for Spiritual Living, which was by Ernest Holmes. It came out of his teaching, and they were doing a trip to Egypt and Bali. I wanted to go to Bali because I had been trying to get to Bali, and Spirit said, "No, you're going to Egypt," and I was like, "No, I already been there." He said, "No, it's time for you to go back." And so I'm sitting in my little red chair because I have this red chair that I used to meditate and Spirit would speak to me in. I said, okay, let me look at my bank account. Look at my bank account. I said, I can pull together the down payment because this is how I talk to Spirit. I can pull together the down payment and I'll pay it this Sunday. But the rest is on you because it ain't there. Okay? So I
I
go to
love
church.
the relationship you have.
So I go to church that Sunday, and I go up because I know everybody was paying their first. They had already paid their down payment. This was when they were paying the first payment. So I said, I want to go. I only have the down payment. How long do I have before I need to get the next payment? She said, I'll give you till the end of the month. I pay that register and I turn, and when I turn, someone touched me on the shoulder. Don't worry about it. We got you. We'll pay the rest. Okay.
And it's to get any better than that.
That's what I'm saying. This is how my life is, girl. This is how my life happens. I was like, okay. So I go that on the 2017. I go, and of course, there's like 76 people on this trip. We go to the Sphinx and we have access to inside the pyramid. We get to go down through the paws of the Sphinx and everything. So everybody's, scrambling down to get to the paws. And there's like a fence. And I stand because I'm like, I want to look at it face to face. I'm just out. I stand on this wall and I'm looking at the Sphinx, and all of a sudden there's this beam of light from the Sphinx to I can't move. Just pictures, just information, just like this, but it's really fast. And I'm standing up there like, and tears are rolling down because I can't move. I can't move. Okay. And then it released me and it says, don't face me. When you face me, you activate me. If you want to touch me, go to the side. Right. And I'm just crying because I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Right. So I go to the bus and I'm crying. I call my sister and I told her what happened. She said, from this point on, cover your head. And do you have any white with you? I said, yeah. She said, cover your head and wear as much white as you can so that energy can pass through you because you're going to experience a lot of energy. And that's what I did. And I remember when I got back from that trip, there were other things that happened because now there's 76 people and I'm in this vacuum all by myself with what's happening to me. Um, so I okay, when I get back, Spirit says to me, you're going to go back to Egypt for 5 years. Get up, because I had bought some books, and I'm going to show you where I want you to go. And when I got up and got the book, it showed me every place that I was to go from Cairo all the way down to Abu Simbel. The next year, in 2018, I started that odyssey. But it told me, let's see, I went 2018, 2019, 2020 was the pandemic. I couldn't go. 2021, they started opening up, and Spirit said to me, I want you to go and do plant medicine to prepare for the journey in Egypt. When I started, got ready and got all the stuff that I'm supposed to do, the plant medicine, he said, no, I don't want you to eat any more meat. Okay? So I said, okay, I could do that. But I'm gonna have these chicken wings before because I had all this meat in my house. So I fixed the chicken wings in my most favorite way, because this is my last time, right?
Last meal.
I bit into the chicken wing. It tastes like wood. I threw them away. I'm like, okay, I see you. I had some smoked salmon in there. I was like, okay, it's all. I only have a little bit. I'm gonna finish that because I paid $25 for that. So I'm gonna finish that. So I ate it. The next day, I was sick as a dog. Okay. I said, I got you. I'm done. I haven't meat has not passed my mouth since. Okay.
Oh my God.
But that 2021 was the year I went and I got answers. In 2018, when I went, there was a woman I met. I had never met her before. A friend of hers and mine brought me to her house. And she had all these crystals. It was beautiful. And she said, they were asking one of their other group members, did you go to Egypt? Or she said, oh, no, no. She said, I didn't go to Egypt. She said, I went to India. And then I said, well, I'm going to Egypt in November. And the woman looked at me and she said, I'm supposed to go with you. I said, okay. She said, I've been told to go and many opportunities have come up. She said, but they weren't right. She said, but I'm supposed to go with you. I said, okay. I gave her the information. I go home that week. She sent her whole thing just paid. Okay. And then she said, I have a book I need to send you. I was told to send to you. See, these people be sending me this information. So she tells me about this book. It was called The Fifth World. Have you read it?
No?
It's It's called The Fifth World. I can't think of the author, but it'll come to me. And in the book, it talks about the Palladiums,
Uh,
okay? And they stand 10 to 15 feet tall. When I went to Egypt in 96 and went into the Temple of Karnak, they have an area called the Hall of Records. And these big, huge pillars, just layers and layers. And I remember when I walked in and I touched one, and a voice said to me, "We were not of your size. We stood 10 to 15 feet tall." In the fifth world, it told me who those people were. Okay?
all the synchronicities,
I'm telling you.
everything. Oh my
And
gosh.
what's interesting, the timing is never my time, it's always universal time because there is no time. When I'm ready for it, it gives it to me. When I went in 2021, I had a girl that was going with me. She kept calling me. She said, "I keep having these dreams about you." She said, "This journey is about you, not the people that are going with you. It's about you." She said, "I keep seeing you in this temple." I said, "Is it a temple we've been in before?" She said, "No, I've never seen this temple before, but I see you in this temple. And you've been in this temple before, and you're doing ceremony in this temple." And I'm like, "No, okay." We get there, we get to the temple of Karnak, and our guide says, "I want to take you somewhere." He takes us off the beaten path of the tourists, right? Way out. And the two things happen there. Way out, and here's this temple. And when I go to walk in the temple, I see these gold flakes coming down, and I jump back, and people, I'm, "What's wrong?" I said, "Y'all don't see that?" And I walk into this temple, and he's taking the group this way, and I walk this way because I know it. It's like I know where I am. And I'm walking, and they going, and they went and did a ceremony here, and I'm walking out. I'm like, "Oh, I know this," right? And so then he took them somewhere else, but I keep walking and I end up right where they are. I don't even know how, but I knew the temple. And so he's taking them into this side room, and I go in this, and I can't go in the room. I said, "I can't go in there." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I can't go in there." And so I said, "You take him in and do the ceremony." And I'm standing outside, and one of the temple guards came. He says, uh, "I am from the lineage of the priests that worked in this temple. Come with me." And then he took me to another room, and he held my head. He had his hands on my head, and he's looking at me. He says, "I know who you are. You are one of us." And tears just flow. And he was telling me a whole bunch of stuff I don't remember, right? And so after that, I'm like, "Okay, what the?" I walk out, and when I walk out to the front of the temple, I find the beginning of the Avenue of the Sphinx that I had been looking for since I went back. In 2017, when we went there, I saw that there were roads over the I said, "When did they put these roads here? I walked this the last time I was here." And the man said, "No, you didn't. This has been like this for years and years." I said, "No, I walked from Karnak to Luxor on this road." "No, you didn't." I saw myself walking it. And every time I went to Karnak, I'm looking for where the road began. I couldn't find it. 2021, there's the beginning of the road at the temple of Kanush, the god of the moon that made the tattoo I have on my shoulder, the Eye of Horus. I got that message when I went in 2000, in 1996, the experience I had at Dendera, where they make the goddess. I had this vision of being in the pool, and I took them. I found the pool and everything. I'm in this pool, I'm walking up the stairs. The high priestess is there. She touches me on my shoulder. She said, "You are one of us. You have the mark." And it was the eye of Horus. When I came back, I put the tattoo there. Okay.
Ah,
So I'm telling you, I've had some really strange shit happen to me. I had some really stuff with Egypt. And listen, this is what's funny. At the 5 year mark, after I'd been there for 5 years, it's like everything fall apart. I couldn't go last year. I couldn't go this year. Do you understand? Last year was the 5th year, and I haven't been given the message to go back. It sent me to India last year. And now I'm going to India, and there's work there that's happening.
oh my
Okay.
gosh, I can't wait to hear what's happening, what goes on when you go
So
to India. That's amazing.
India was, yeah. But it, all of it, everything that I'm giving, it prepares me as my frequency changes.
Hmm.
I remember when my frequency changed, I was phasing in and out of time. It's just weird shit what's happening to me. I mean, my eyes are open and I'm seeing the screen and shit's playing out on the screen. I'm like, what is going on? Why? Why is this happening? Right?
Hmm.
And so um, they sent me back. They sent me to Colombia this time. The Taita, which is the head of all the shamans that I know, he teaches them. He called me, told me, "Come to Colombia. I have something I have to do for you." This is before I go to India,
Huh?
okay? And before my last time going to Egypt. And what had happened was my frequency had changed. And I didn't know, I didn't understand what was happening. So I go there and I'm thinking I'm going to do medicine. And so we have a small 15-minute session. I said to him, "Why did you want me to come here?" He said, I have to do something for you so that you can do what you're doing better. And I didn't understand, right? So the first night we do medicine. The second night we do medicine. And the time before that, I had been to Costa Rica and the mother had given me a dragon, the energy of a dragon. And and I remember when I got the energy, the dragon was flying out of the Maloka, and I'm looking through the eyes of the dragon as it flies over. I didn't even think anymore about that. But the second night I'm there in Colombia, the mother says, "Now I'm going to show you the power of the dragon," right? I'm like, okay, whatever. The next day, I wake up and I'm feeling not well. Okay. I don't have a fever. I don't have any aches in my body or anything, but it's like my body I have a lot of mucus just coming through.
Mhm.
And so it got so bad I laid down and the Tita didn't come to my room. He sent somebody with a flask of tea and said, "Drink this," right? So that night, I mean, I drank the whole thing, and that night, I mean, mucus is running out of me like water. It's just running out of me like water. And I'm still not feeling good. So they had medicine that night. And, I went to the clinic. They did tests to see if I had COVID and all that stuff. None of that was happening. But I'm just not, I can't go up and do medicine. So next, the next day, the Tita comes to my room. And that day I'd asked him, could you ask him, could I have another flask of that tea? Because I felt better. And I wanted to do the last night of medicine. And so he came to my room and he talked to me, he said, "How you feeling?" I said, "Well, I feel a lot better and I wanted to be able to go to do medicine." He says, no, he says, "I'm going to send a bath for you that I want you to do. And if you feel okay after you do the bath, then you can come up, right?" So it was actually a big picture of whatever this bath was. I had to pour it all over me, right? And by the time, before I could even get out of the shower, somebody's at the door. And it was his assistant. She says, Title wants you to come upstairs. Don't go up to the med. He wants you to come upstairs. So everybody's gone up there to do medicine. And he's upstairs waiting for me. He says, sit down, I need to do something here. So he gets this, we call them stinging nettles, but they call them something else, these branches. And, I'm almost naked. He's doing whatever prayer he's doing all over me. And then he says, now I want you to stand in the middle of the room. And so he's not speaking because he speaks Spanish and they're speaking to me. So I stand in the middle room and then they light this circle of fire around me, right? And he walks all around and he's doing whatever he's doing. I don't know what he's saying, what he's doing, right? And then when it goes out, he says, now I want you to go back to your room and integrate with what's happening. And listen, that night in that room, I went somewhere. I don't know where I was, but the message that I had that came out of that was to see everything through the eyes of love. It said, no matter how people present to you, they are love. See that. See only love. No matter how they act, what they say, see only love. And I remember about 5 o'clock that morning, I got up and I wasn't grounded. I got up and I walked outside barefoot and just stood in the grass trying to ground. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And I got up the next morning. I'm feeling great. I go up to have breakfast. He calls me again, takes me back in and does it again. I was like, wow. Everything, I was even. Whatever, it was like he took my physical to meet that spiritual transition. When I went to India that February, the moment I stepped on that ground, it was like I was in this bubble of love, this energy of unconditional love. I'd never felt it before. Never. I couldn't breathe beneath the top of my chest. The energy was so powerful. Everywhere I went, people were lining up to take pictures. Here, take a picture with my baby. It was a weird, I experienced that in Egypt before, the first time I went to Egypt. Same thing in India. Okay. So, yeah.
Wow, that's so powerful. There was something I was going to say. Oh, I know. When you said see everything through the eyes of love,
Yeah.
I was like, that's just bringing it all full circle right there. Just bringing it
Mm-hmm.
all right back
Mm-hmm.
to what it all
Yeah.
means. The Beatles
Yeah.
had it right. Like that's really all you need is doing and acting and saying everything from a
Yeah.
place of love.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Esther, I can talk to you all day. This is
I know. But we both.
amazing. Your story, I mean, it's just so
Yeah.
captivating, and
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
grateful for you to come and share
I'm so
this.
grateful for you allowing me.
Oh my gosh, you're just
It's it's
incredible.
it's such a beautiful world, such a beautiful experience that we are afforded here in this dimension. And if I can help just one person wake up and realize who and what they are and to experience what we are meant to experience here, I can sleep at night and feel better about myself. Okay? So, yeah. But yeah,
Esther,
thank you
tell
so
us,
much.
where can people find you? Where can people reach you?
Well, my website, I have a website, and on my website is also the next journey that I'm taking, and it's www.estherjones, that's all one word, dash Alley, ALLEY.com. I'm also on Facebook under Esther Alley, Instagram, Esther Jones Alley, LinkedIn, Esther Jones Alley. So I'm on all the social medias, and there's no one out there that looks like me. So you'll see if you get Esther, it's me. Okay? So yeah.
Awesome. And I'm going to put all of those links in the description under this video so that if
Okay.
you don't have anything to write it with, you can just go and look at the information there.
Yes.
Amazing. This has been so lovely. Thank you so much for coming. Is there
Thank you.
anything you want to leave the audience with? Anything else you want to share? You share
You
so
know,
much.
the greatest thing for me is love one another because you are me and I am you. What I do to you, I do to myself. And that's everyone. We are all one. So if people can just wake up that much to understand that we are all connected, and what I do to you, I do to everyone in this collective. Love one another as you love yourself, but first love yourself.
Amazing. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Esther. It's been
Thank you.
lovely.
Thank you.
Sending so much love to you. And I'll see you guys next
Thank
time.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
What an amazing interview. I'm just so head over heels over the energy here. If you really enjoyed the content of this podcast, I'm asking you to please subscribe, hit the like, put a message there, send us a message or a comment, and share this podcast so that other people may get the information that is being shared here. With that, I'll let you go and I will see you next time. Bye bye.